some characters of people that are very dangerous, especially in terms of security purposes, because there are some gangs that recruit members of street families. They recruit them into the job of robbery, into the job of spying, into the job, depending on the area of specialization. So I looked into this keenly and I discovered the truth that some of the people who are arrested and taken to jail because of robbery, some of them are members of street families. Some of the people that rob are members of street families. Some of the people that kill are members of street families. So those were some of the inspirations that pushed me ahead also to go deeper into this. And as I was going deeper into this, I also realized that street families exist temporarily, depending on the situation and the environment. Like, for example, if they have to occupy a given place in their area of operations, where they target people for robberies and theft, then when people realize that the place is becoming dangerous and people no longer walk in such like places at certain times, they resort to some other places, and then they leave the place and go to another place for their operations of theft and robbery.
Basically, from the name street families, it basically just tells you this is a totally different kind of setup, especially as far as lifestyle is concerned. From your research, from your experience with street families, how would you describe the kind of lifestyle?
Street family is made up of a funny culture. I call it a culture because it fits being called a culture. It is funny because, one, when a member of street family or when somebody gets into becoming a street family, a member of street family, he has to go through certain stages. If you are new in the family, you will not just be accepted because you are new, but you must go through certain stages. Like, for example, you must familiarize yourself with the group. You must also outline your participation to the family where you are going to. And you must always abide by whatever is required. So, following these considerations, this is what brings the diversities in the culture of street families. Whoever feels that he or she cannot fit in a given culture, depending on the environment and the people involved in that culture, can move away to form their own family. Like, for example, women. For example, when women find it so difficult to fit in a given group of street families, they tend to move away from such a group. Such like women would try to live by themselves, and by so living by themselves, they make their own family, which is made up of women specifically. So they operate as women, but under street family. Yeah. At the same time, there are children, young children, who become members of street families. When they find the conditions too harsh for them to stay, they decide to walk away. And during my investigations, I found 2 children, very young. They said that they were 6 and 7 years old, respectively. And they talked of being married, 2 young children. They worked together They search for food together, they sleep together, wake up together, and they would conduct their chores together. That is also another family which is made up of 2 children, because they could not fit within the cultures that is commanding in certain families.
Of course, if we were to look at an ideal family setup, every one of us would desire to be in one, where things work. There's a father, there's a mother, there are brothers, everything is working out very well. But to some extent, sometimes life does not offer us what we really desire, what we really want. Now, of course, there are reasons why many children or many people would actually, not out of their own decision, be part of a street family. What are some of the reasons that you got, that you came to realize, that led people to actually these kinds of setups?
There are certain communities that don't really welcome orphans. They don't welcome orphans because they feel, or they believe that whenever they keep their orphans, they are left with after the death of their parents, then the children or the orphans would grow into being superior than their children, their own children. So in such a case, they try to always hinder any progress and development of such like children. The orphans will automatically search for a means of surviving. In this case, they will leave for a known place. They can land anywhere after that, whether streets or anywhere, or somebody whom they don't know. There are some people keeping children whom they don't really know, or they don't know their backgrounds, because children just came to their homes, but they can't really know where they have come from, and even if they try to trace, they don't get. So some of those children that run from given homes after the death of their parents, they run because of mistreatments that they get from their guardians.
Of course, you have written the Vigilant magazine. There was a reason why you wrote it. And at the end of the day, I'm looking at Kenya. We have the government, we have the citizens, of course. We have human rights organizations. And at the end of the day, things have to change, especially if we're focusing on Vision 2030. Things have to change. We cannot just focus on one part of the population and forget another. What is your message to the people out there? Government officials, citizens of Kenya, and of course, human rights organizations.
I would want to tell the government that if we citizens, we have to achieve the goal of 2030, then that vision cannot be achieved by improving the life standards of certain people and avoiding some. If somebody must be considered in the new constitution to be less fortunate, then I think that a street child, a member of street family, should be in the consideration. That is when we are moving somewhere. The only thing that we can employ as a government, as a citizen, as any other person in the country, any other official in the country, is tolerance first. We know that this is a culture which is funny, a culture which has no background. We must tolerate these people to bring them into realizing their efforts, their life, and to make them identify themselves. Because street families suffer an identification crisis. They don't know themselves. They don't know what they are up to and why they are on the streets and why they can move out of streets and how they can move out of streets. So the issue that the government flushed them out of major towns in the verge of cleaning the towns is not enough. They should do more than that, because take him out of major towns, but he's still a street child. This person can help the country greatly if he lives to see the future and a brighter future. Thank you.
As a first-year communication student at Multimedia University, Mark Obar has actually made a mark in the world of journalism. And of course, this is the kind of future that we're actually moving towards, where information and news is based on transforming society. And this is something that you got to sit down and read, the Vigilant magazine, so that you have an insight on the lifestyles of street families. Only on Page Turner.